big wins for some of our favorite shows at the Creative Arts Emmys last night. The Bear swept the wins for Outstanding Guest Actor and Actress in a Comedy Series, with Jon Bernthal and Jamie Lee Curtis winning for their respective roles in the show. Michaela Cole won Outstanding Guest Actress in a Drama Series for her role in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and Shogun's Nestor Carbonell won for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama. Shogun struck gold, taking home the most ever Emmys for a single season with 14 wins, and the songwriting duo Benj Pasek and Justin Paul became the 20th and 21st members of the coveted EGOT Club after winning their first Emmys for Outstanding Music and Lyrics for a song they co-wrote for Only Murders in the Building. Of course, the Creative Arts Emmys, just the start of the Emmy season, a sort of award show appetizer, we're calling it, if you will. That's ahead of the primetime Emmys, which takes place on Sunday.
Exactly. That's coming quickly. One of my other favorite headlines was that Dick Van Dyke, who's about to turn 99, won an Emmy. And he had already earlier this year won a daytime Emmy for a soap opera. So this year, Dick Van Dyke just raking in all the Emmys.
Look, age, just a number.
Exactly. He will tell you that, too.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, this hour, speaking of awards, the nominations are in for the 58th Annual Country Music Association Awards, the CMAs. A lot of familiar names got the nod. As always, there are several surprises and a few snubs on the list, including a pretty big one. For more, let's bring in Jim Aswad. He is Variety's Executive Editor of Music and joins us now with all the details. Good to have you with us. So let's start with the big snub. Beyonce had one of the best-selling country music albums of the year. Not a single nod. Is that a surprise? What do you make of that?
I don't consider it a surprise at all. The national country music establishment is very insular, and you kind of have to play that game. And you look at Post Malone, who basically put a charm offensive on Nashville, and everybody there loves him, as opposed to Beyonce, who didn't really do a whole lot to ingratiate herself with the country music establishment. She doesn't need to. She doesn't care. Realistically, half the album is country. So, no, I'm not surprised at all.
Is that like how it should work? That you got to go and do all that kind of stuff rather than just have an album be clearly hugely commercially successful?
You mean awards aren't just purely who does
I know there's all that behind the scenes drama and the campaigns and stuff. It's just like with with stats as strong as hers, you know?
Yeah, it's a really tough thing to sort of try to explain, but it's very much an insider's town. And you can't get much more country than Morgan Wallen, and something arguably similar has happened to him for years.
Yeah, we'll talk more about him in just a minute. Let's get into who did get these nominations. So let's start with Entertainer of the Year. Big names here, maybe a little drama. Chris Stapleton, he's now had a record 8 nominations, but never actually won. And then last year's winner, Lainey Wilson, she can make history because that would be winning for the second time in a row. Tell us more about this category.
I mean, I would not be shocked to see Lainey win again. With no diss to her, she's a great new artist. She speaks to the female contingent a lot, which, as we know, has been very underrepresented in country in recent years. And she's really charming. Also, Jelly Roll has a fantastic story. A former felon, a former addict, and he speaks about the gratitude toward it all. I mean, I've met him. He's the nicest guy you'll ever meet in your whole life. And on top of that, his records are great. And one thing I find really interesting about him is the fact that his music is so based in hip hop and rock as well as country. So, I really feel like he's speaking to country's broad demographic right there. Chris Stapleton is amazing. He's one of the greatest singers you will ever hear, but he's a little bit less of an entertainer, I would say. He's more of a singer-songwriter, I just don't think of the word entertainer when I think of him.
You mentioned Morgan Wallen. Let's talk about him. Several nominations over the last few years. No wins since he took home New Artist 4 years ago in 2020. He's now leading the pack with 7 nominations. Could this be his year?
It possibly could be, but a lot of those nominations came because of his duet with Post Malone, who, as I said, has put on a real charm offensive. Morgan's a bad boy. I say that in the literal sense of the word. I mean, who throws a chair off of a 6-story building not knowing what's below you? And there have been other things along the way. And in a way, reminiscent of a certain politician, the more he behaves that way, the more his audience seems to love it. So I think he's always going to be an outsider in that sense, unless the Academy changes slightly or he softens himself, which I don't see happening.
Let's talk new artists, the category that Morgan has won in. Who's on this list?
Megan and Shabuzi are definitely in the lead. Megan has a female factor working in her way, but Shabuzi's got the biggest country hit of the year, for better or worse. It is literally the biggest hit of the year right now. And there's a little bit of the Lil Nas X factor involved there as well. You just don't see that many pop black country performers. So it's kind of exciting there.
We'll see what happens. Jim Aswad, thanks so much. The CMAs will be held in Nashville November 20th. It's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now.